Welcome to this setup video to get hardware PhysX working on Batman Arkham City. I thought I could try to get this working with Arkham Asylum, but it doesn't appear to work. But I'll kind of show you some of the steps that I did, and we can do a quick comparison from a performance standpoint of why it's not working right in Arkham Asylum, but I was able to get it working under Arkham City. So anyway, I spent a lot of time last night just messing around trying to get this going, because initially what I was going to do is I was going to do a benchmark video showing the performance in Windows as compared to Linux, because hardware PhysX just wasn't working really well. I think I was averaging around 35 or so frames per second with the Arkham City benchmark. Then I jumped over to Windows, and with VSync on, it was basically 59, 60 frames per second, obviously because it cap out at 60. So I was like, wow, the performance is substantially worse under Linux. And doing a lot of research, I found out that basically it wasn't putting the PhysX calculations on the GPU, it was doing it on the CPU. And so obviously the performance was heavily impacted. So here's the steps that I did to get it working under Arkham City. First, these are the I'm using a glorious egg roll Proton. At this point in time, 7-24 is the newest, so that's the version of Proton I'm using. And these are the launch options that I'm using. Now, I did a little more research as to what each launch option does, and I'll go ahead and link this to you. But basically here on Valve's Proton page, they have a runtime config options, and I actually went in here and I actually started reading about a lot of what they do, basically. And so this one right here caught my eye: Proton Enable NV API. And that says enable Nvidia's GPU support library. I was like, well, that kind of makes it sound like you should be able to run PhysX. So what I did for Arkham City, and I'll go ahead and pull that up here now, is I ran Proton tricks. Now keep in mind right here, this number 200, 260, that's going to be pretty vital for something I did later on. So anyway, using Proton tricks, I pulled this guy up. Give it a moment. Okay, it'll warn you about using a 64-bit wine prefix, but that's fine. And then we're just going to select the default, and then went under here to install a Windows DLL or component. Now, if I were to try to do this again, it would say it's already installed. But just scroll down here and click on PhysX, and then hit OK to install it. Like I said, I've already installed it, so it kind of isn't going to do anything for you. Just tell me I've already got it installed. So once I installed the PhysX middleware component to this container, you can go ahead and get out of Proton. The other thing I did is I noticed here on the Glorious Eggroll page, he had a specific Proton fix for Arkham Knight. So Arkham Knight is 208.650, and as you can tell, all it does is enable PhysX. So what I did is I copied this Python file and renamed the other one 200-260 for Arkham City. Now I tried doing that for Arkham Asylum, and I'll just kind of just show you here the comparison basically. So if I go into Arkham Asylum and I launch this, I don't know why it doesn't work for Arkham Asylum. I've even got it enabled right now. If you go to settings, and you try doing anything with PhysX, it's going to tell you that you don't have hardware PhysX. So let me go ahead and launch this game. Well, actually, let's see here. Yeah. So these are basically the settings I was running before. It was, you know, highest detail possible. So let me go ahead and run the game real quick and show you how performance suffers basically when the CPU is doing all the PhysX work. Okay, so I'm loaded into the game now, and I had to do a special hotkey to get the benchmark going for Arkham Asylum. But for me, I set up F9. So if you hit F9, it'll run through the benchmark, and you can see that there is some PhysX stuff going on here. Like, for instance, the fog. The fog was definitely not there when I played the game before. And so you can see a little more, well, physics going on here and there. And definitely here you see a lot more of the fog. Well, the problem is this isn't a very good benchmark because you're really not getting any frames per second. So you don't know, other than watching it, how much it's affecting you performance-wise. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I just played it safe and just left it disabled when I played through Arkham Asylum. That and the guy just walked through a pile of papers. It passed right through his leg. So yeah, it would have been nice to play with this, but for some reason I just can't get this working on Arkham Asylum. Well, I say not working well. I don't know how much it would have affected performance, but playing it safe, I kept it off. Now, let's jump over to Arkham City, where I have the same launch options. And that Proton Enable NVA API is the main one. And I did install PhysX. If I play here and I go to Configure PC Options, takes a minute. If I go down into settings, so I've got, these are the settings I've got. I'm using FXAA high. I'm not really sure if that or 8 times MSAA is better, but I got the DirectX 11 turned on, and if I click back and forth, you notice I'm not getting that pop-up now telling me I don't have hardware accelerated PhysX. So I'm going to put this on high, and now we're going to play Arkham City, and we're going to do the benchmark for it. Alright, here we are in the launch screen basically for Arkham City. If you go over to game settings, fortunately they have a benchmark built into this program here. So let's watch this now with hardware PhysX enabled, and you can actually, you'll see the frames per second and also the performance difference. Now I do have VSync enabled, so the numbers would probably go up if I had turned off VSync. Not only that, but you can also see that the PhysX appears to be working a lot better in this game as well. And to be fair, it is a little bit slower than in Windows, but not slower to the point where it's unplayable. Actually, I got better frames per second yesterday, actually, so I guess it does kind of depend a little bit on the luck of the draw sometimes. And I do have, I think, some more stuff open in the background right now. But I actually pulled 55 frames per second yesterday. But even still, 50 frames per second is a far cry better than the 35 or so I was getting before. And I'm not getting that pop-up saying that I don't have hardware PhysX. So, yes, with Batman Arkham City, you can enable hardware PhysX if you're running an Nvidia GPU, but these are the steps that I went through to get it working. And yep, I could go without PhysX and get 60 frames per second with VSync on, or I could just basically deal with the slight, decrease in performance that I probably won't even notice, because I mean 50 frames per second is still pretty good. So anyway, that'll do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.